Hi, my name is Luna. And if you were to step into my home on the edge of Asheville, North Carolina, you'd be greeted not by silence, but by the soft patter of paws, the occasional purr, and the unmistakable smell of fresh lavender from the garden out back. I live here alone, or at least, that's what I'm told. But I'm not really alone. I live with 10 British Shorthair cats, each one with a name, a personality, and a story. People like to joke that I'm the cat lady of the neighborhood, and I don't mind it. Let them laugh. What they don't see is that this house, the red brick, two-story cottage with creaky hardwood floors and sun-warmed windows, was built with love. My husband Jim and I poured everything into it back in 1984. Brick by brick. Weekend by weekend. He was a woodworker. The kind of man who could turn a tree trunk into a rocking chair and a shed into a sanctuary. When he passed 10 years ago, this house became even more sacred to me. Every corner, every scratch on the wall has his spirit in it. This is not just where I live. It's where I built something real. After 35 years as an IRS auditor, I retired early. I needed something to keep my hands busy and my heart from sinking too deep into grief. So I turned to the one thing that had always brought me calm: cats. What started with a single abandoned kitten on our porch has now grown into Blue Ridge British Shorthairs, one of the most trusted and reputable catteries in the Southeast. Every morning, I wake up before the sun, brew a pot of dark roast, and make my rounds: food bowls, water dishes, litter boxes. I check coats, monitor weights, chart breeding cycles. You'd think I was running a hospital. And in some ways, I am. These aren't just animals. They're legacy, reputation, and living proof that love, when nurtured, multiplies. People don't realize the work that goes into a cattery. They see fluff and cuteness on Instagram. They don't see the 3 a.m. emergency litters, the meticulous record keeping, or the heartbreaking calls when someone has to surrender a kitten they can no longer keep. But I see it. I live it. I'm 66 now. My friends are retiring to Florida, downsizing into condos with pools and community brunches. They ask me why I stay here, alone in this big old house, running what they call a furry daycare. And I always smile, because they don't understand. This isn't just a house, and these aren't just cats. This is where I watched my daughter Madison take her first steps, where Jim carved our initials into the oak banister, where the very first litter of Blue Ridge kittens was born, right on that old checkered quilt in the sunroom. It's a home built not just with money or time, but with memory, with devotion, with love. I know this may not be everyone's dream, but it's mine, and I've spent a lifetime earning it. I didn't know then that someone I love would soon ask me to give it all up. But we'll get to that. It was a warm Saturday in early spring when Madison called. "Mom," she said, voice light but purposeful. "Evan and I are driving down next weekend. We want to spend some time with you. Catch up. And we've got something exciting to share." Now, Madison doesn't drop by often. She works in Nashville, fast-paced, high-rise, coffee-on-the-go kind of life. Last time she was home was 6 months ago. And even then, she stayed only one night. So the sudden enthusiasm was notable. The following Saturday, around noon, a silver Audi pulled up my gravel driveway. Evan stepped out first, tall, tan, with that perfectly gelled hair and the kind of posture that screamed salesman. Madison followed, looking effortlessly polished, her black sunglasses catching the Carolina sun. "Mom," she smiled. wrapping me in a hug I wasn't expecting. "You look great." "Still breathing," I replied with a chuckle, wiping my hands on my gardening apron. "Come in." Inside, the cats instinctively retreated to their favorite corners. Except Sterling. He doesn't back down for anyone. Evan surveyed the room like he was inspecting a model home. "Wow, this is spacious," he said, eyes gliding from the cathedral ceiling to the original hardwoods. "These beams, are they original?" I nodded. "Jim installed them himself. Madison offered to help with tea." And we sat on the back porch overlooking the ridge. The air smelled of magnolia and fresh grass. I served lemon cake and sweet tea, Jim's favorite, and waited. That's when the conversation shifted. "So," Madison began, "Evan and I have been thinking a lot about our next chapter." I nodded, sipping slowly. "And this place." She gestured around. "It's everything we want." "Mom, it's perfect." I blinked. "Perfect for what?" "For us," she said. "For raising a family. For building something. You've got the cattery established. The infrastructure in place. Evan and I could expand it, take it digital. Maybe even franchise it." "Franchise?" I nearly choked on my tea. Evan leaned forward. "Luna, you've done something remarkable here. But running a property like this at your age? It's a lot. Madison and I could live here. Take over the daily operations. You deserve something easier. A condo downtown. Maybe one with a doorman. An elevator. You wouldn't have to worry about maintenance anymore." I set my cup down. "And I'd live." "Where, in Asheville?" Madison said quickly. "Closer to the hospital. Shops. Restaurants. You'd have more freedom." "Freedom from what?" I asked. Neither answered right away. Sterling meowed in the silence. Madison pressed on. "You've always said you want what's best for me. This is it. It's not about taking anything from you, it's about continuing the legacy." Legacy. That word tasted bitter in my mouth. Evan chimed in again. "And look, I know the market. This house could easily be valued at $750. Ling. Maybe more. It's not just a home, it's a prime asset." And there it was. The mask slipped just a little. They weren't here for legacy, they were here for leverage. I looked at my daughter, this strong, ambitious woman I had raised, and saw someone I didn't recognize. Her voice was still soft, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. I forced a smile. Let me think about it. But in my heart, I already knew the answer. And deep down, I think Madison did too. The days that followed felt different. There was something in the air now, something I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was the way Madison's voice tightened ever so slightly on the phone. Or the way Evan started calling me ma'am with an extra dose of charm that felt more like manipulation than manners. They hadn't brought up the house again directly, but the suggestion hovered, heavy and unspoken, like a storm cloud that wouldn't quite burst. And then came the envelopes. Brochures slid into my mailbox. Condos in downtown Asheville, complete with rooftop views, spa rooms, and community events for vibrant seniors. The messages were subtle but clear. You don't belong here anymore. It's time to move on. I wasn't sure if Madison had even noticed how obvious it was getting. Maybe she thought she was being gentle. Maybe she believed the constant drip of suggestions would wear me down the way water carves stone. Or maybe, just maybe, this wasn't coming from her alone. I decided to call Donna Hale. Donna and I had worked together back in my IRS days. These days, she was one of the most respected real estate agents in Buncombe County, and more importantly, she didn't sugarcoat. "I need a favor." I told her over coffee at a local diner. What do you know about Evan Crawford? Donna arched a brow. You mean Evan the closer from Nashville? I nodded. Her face changed, not dramatically, but enough for me to feel my stomach twist. I'd be careful with that one, she said quietly. He's slick. No doubt. Good on paper. But I've heard murmurs bad investments. Pushing questionable lots out in Shelbyville. There's even talk of a lawsuit coming. I sat still, letting it sink in. Why are you asking? She added. No reason. I lied. Just a hunch. But it wasn't just a hunch anymore. It was a feeling I had in my bones that this wasn't about legacy or family. It was about money. Survival. A man trying to use my life's work as a life raft. The next time Madison called, her tone was clipped. Did you get the brochures I sent? I did? I said, lovely places. Too small for Sterling. Though, you know that's not the point. Mom. I stayed silent. You're being stubborn, she continued. Evan and I are trying to offer you a chance to live more comfortably. Comfort, I said, isn't measured in elevators or quartz countertops. It's measured in peace. And right now I don't have much of that. There was a pause. I just want what's best for you, she said. And for the first time, her voice cracked. But you make it so hard. I didn't respond. Because the truth was, she wasn't asking me to come with her, she was asking me to get out of her way. That Sunday, they visited again, this time with smiles stretched a little too wide. Evan brought wine. Madison brought a folder. Just ideas, she said sweetly. No pressure. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't the end of a conversation. It was the beginning of a battle. And I was no stranger to battles. Not after 35 years of audits. Not after burying the love of my life. Not after building something out of grief. They were coming for my home. But I wasn't planning on letting go that easy. The invitation came a week later. An embossed envelope. Heavy stock. Sealed with a wax M for Madison. A formal rehearsal dinner at Whispering Pines Country Club. Nestled in the Smoky Mountains. A who's who guest list of Evan's colleagues. Madison's coworkers. And extended family I hadn't seen in over a decade. I knew exactly what it was. Another chance to corner me in public. But I didn't flinch. I chose a navy blue dress. Jim had always said it brought out the silver in my hair. When I arrived, everything was extravagant. Waiters in black ties floated between clusters of expensive heels and cufflinks. String quartet in the corner. Champagne flutes never empty. Evan greeted me with that same pearly smile. Luna, you look radiant tonight. Let's just skip the dance, I replied. And get to the pitch. His smile faltered. Just slightly. Dinner was served. Filet mignon. Roasted duck. Crème brûlée. They pulled out every stop. And for a while, I almost forgot. Almost. Until the toasts began. Ladies and gentlemen, Evan said, tapping his glass. Before the big day tomorrow, I want to take a moment to honor someone very special. He turned toward me. Full of practiced charm. Luna Garrett has not only raised the most incredible woman I've ever met, she's also given us the greatest gift of all. Her home. The house Madison grew up in. The heart of her family. She's passed it on to us so we can continue that legacy. I froze. Gasps. Applause. Whispers. My hands went cold. Evan smiled wider. We're overwhelmed by her generosity. And we can't wait to build our life there. To honor what she built and take it even further. I looked at Madison. She didn't meet my eyes. She stared at her glass. Unmoving. The spotlight was on me now. Every head turned. And in that moment, I realized what was happening. This wasn't a toast. It was a trap. They had told everyone, announced it publicly, dared me to object, because objecting would make me seem senile, unstable, selfish. But I've spent my entire life calling out lies. Even when the liars wore suits and shook hands with mayors, I stood up. Excuse me. I said, voice calm. I'd like to clarify something. The room fell into silence so thick. You could feel the tension settle into the silverware. There's been a misunderstanding. I continued. I did not gift my home to Madison and Evan. I have no plans to move. And I certainly never agreed to have that decision broadcast without my consent. Evan's face froze. Madison's cheeks turned pale. I love my daughter. But my house is not up for grabs. It's not a bargaining chip. It's not a reward for getting married. It's my life. My legacy. And it's staying with me. A beat of silence. Then murmurs. A few people set down their drinks. Evan cleared his throat. Luna must be confused. No. I said, locking eyes with him. I'm not. And that was the moment I knew I had won the first battle. But the war was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to silence. Not the comforting kind, the kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket. No. This was sharp silence. Cold. The kind that follows a storm you didn't start, but damn well finished. I made my coffee and sat at the kitchen window. Outside, the sun rose like nothing had happened, lighting up the dewy hills behind the house. Sterling curled at my feet, purring as if to say, you did what you had to do. My phone buzzed just after 9 a.m. It was a text from Madison. If you can't support me today, don't come. I read it 3 times. Short. Blunt. Final. No love. Maddie. No, we'll talk later. Just a line drawn in concrete. I set the phone down and stared into my mug. The heat rising from it felt warmer than anything in my chest. I hadn't slept much after the rehearsal dinner. When I left the country club, people avoided my gaze. Evan's parents glared. Madison didn't speak a word as I passed her. And now, on the day my only daughter was getting married, I was uninvited. Or maybe banished was a better word. I could have begged. I could have swallowed my pride. Showed up with a smile. Pretended like it didn't matter. But if I've learned anything in 66 years, it's this. Once you betray your own truth to keep someone else comfortable, you start erasing yourself one piece at a time. So I stayed home. I fed the cats. I cleaned the nursery. I folded the little blue blanket Jim used to wrap around our very first litter. Nearly 20 years ago. Around noon, the calls started. Old friends. Clients. Neighbors who'd heard something at the club. One message stood out. Donna Hale. Luna, you were right. I did some digging. Evan's facing 2 lawsuits now. Fraud. Misrepresentation. He's not just shady, he's sinking. I think the house was his way out. I sat down hard on the steps. Phone in hand. Breath caught in my throat. So it was true. This had never been about family. It had been about leverage. About control. About a man who saw a woman's life work and thought, that'll do nicely. And Madison, where did that leave her, the girl I raised to be independent? To question everything. To lead. Not follow. Now, blindly walking into a marriage built on lies and manipulation, I tried to tell myself she'd come around. That she'd see through the cracks. but another part of me older. Wearier wondered if she already had, and was too afraid to start over. That night, I didn't go near my phone. I didn't check social media for wedding photos. I didn't wait for a call. I sat on the porch with Sterling and a glass of Cabernet, watching the fireflies blink across the yard. Jim planted. There were no violins. No bouquet toss. No mother-daughter photo in a gilded frame. Just me. My cats. My house. And the quiet knowledge that I had chosen truth over pretense, even if it broke something I wasn't sure could be repaired. 3 weeks passed. 3 long, quiet weeks. I didn't hear a word from Madison. Not a call. Not a text. Not even a forwarded email. I told myself I wasn't waiting. But every time the phone buzzed, my heart leapt before my mind caught up. Instead, the calls came from neighbors, clients, and one persistent journalist from the Asheville Gazette who'd somehow caught wind of the wedding fallout. I declined every request for comment. Then, one Saturday morning, just as I was clipping lavender in the back garden, I heard tires on gravel. I turned slowly. A rental car. Madison. Her face looked thinner. Tired. The glow from her wedding day was gone. Replaced with something harder. Something that had been cracked open by the real world. She stood at the edge of the yard like a stranger waiting to be invited in. "Hi, Mom," she said. I didn't speak at first. I set the scissors down, wiped my hands on my apron, and met her halfway. I shouldn't have come unannounced, she added quickly, but I didn't know where else to go. We walked to the porch. Sterling, always the sentry, narrowed his eyes and took up position beside my chair. I poured sweet tea. Madison didn't touch hers. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I figured," I said gently. She looked out across the hills, her voice low. "Evan's gone. Left for Dallas 2 days after the honeymoon. Took the last of our savings. And his name was never even on the lease to the apartment we moved into." I waited. And I didn't get the job I thought I would. Marketing firms talk a big game. But once the gossip started, doors closed. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. She finally looked at me. "I know what you're thinking." I shook my head. "No. Madison, I don't think I know anything anymore. I just listen now." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away fast. "I thought I was building something real," she whispered. But all I was doing was helping him build an escape route. Then came the question I knew was coming. "Can I stay here just for a while? Just until I figure out what's next?" Sterling growled, low and serious. Madison flinched. "He still hates me," she muttered. "No," I said. "He doesn't hate you. He just remembers things the way they were." She looked up, and there it was between us, truth. "You're always welcome here," I said carefully. "But not if this house is just your backup plan. Not if you're coming out of desperation. This place is love. It's labor. And if you're here, you're part of that." She nodded slowly. "I don't want the house. Mom, I just don't want to be alone." "Neither do I," I said, a tremble in my voice. We sat there in silence. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something closer to understanding. Spring in Asheville came early that year. The dogwoods bloomed in soft whites and pinks. And the breeze smelled of cut grass and something sweeter hope. Maybe. It had been 2 months since Madison returned. She stayed in the guest room, Jim's old study, now filled with sunlight, books, and the soft shuffling of Sterling outside the door. The silence between us had softened into quiet coexistence. Not everything was healed, but the air no longer carried tension like static before a storm. Some mornings we talked over breakfast. Other days, we passed each other like gentle shadows, each tending to our own wounds. She never brought up the house again, and I never asked her to. One Saturday, as I trimmed the nails of a new litter, 4 perfect British short-hair kittens, Madison appeared in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee and a small notebook. I was thinking, she said, maybe we could set up a social media page for the cattery. Nothing fancy. Just photos. Updates. Maybe stories about the cats. People love that kind of thing. I looked up, surprised. You want to help with the cattery? She shrugged. Almost shy. If you'll let me. There was a long pause. Then I smiled. Let's try. And so we did. She took photos. Good ones. Candid moments of kittens tumbling over each other. Sterling sprawled out like royalty. Me holding a newborn in my palm like it was made of glass. She wrote captions, answered comments, even arranged a few local interviews. People started noticing. Our little mountain cattery was suddenly gaining attention from beyond the ridge, but more importantly, for the first time in a long time, we were creating something together. One morning, I found her sitting on the back porch, flipping through an old photo album. Jim's handwriting labeled each page. There we were. All of us, Madison with pigtails, Jim covered in sawdust, me, cradling a cat named Basil, in a rocking chair I can't remember giving away. I forgot how much love lived in this house, she whispered. I sat beside her, placing my hand over hers. It never left. I said, that evening, as the sun dipped behind the ridge and the sky turned to watercolor gold, we shared a glass of sweet tea under the porch awning. I don't expect everything to go back to how it was, she said. But I'd like to try again. I'd like that too, I replied. And we sat in silence, not the cold kind, but the warm kind that holds space for new beginnings. Sterling stretched out across both our feet, purring like an engine that never quits. The house was quiet. The cattery hummed with new life. And somewhere inside me, a door I thought had shut forever creaked open just enough to let light in. I had almost lost everything, but I held the line. Not for the house, for myself, and somehow, in choosing truth over comfort, I'd found both.